But it's not only a Tier Tuesday, it's a Tommy Tuesday here on Jones and Keefe. Tommy Curran, NBC Sports Boston. What's going on this week, Tom E?
It's freezing, and it's very, very windy. It's scarily windy, and kind of hunkered down, and we're in that little period now before free agency, before the owners' meetings, where we get that great opportunity to hear what the goals are for the team, and then the draft. So it's kind of a reset. So that's kind of what I've been doing. That's why I fired off a couple of texts to you about positional overviews to kind of, where is this team really a position? So that's what's going on.
Well, and I want to get to some of the positional overviews coming up. You've already written about quarterbacks and running backs, some ideas for the Patriots this offseason, and, various degrees of need for the team. On T. Higgins, we were just discussing this. It sounds like he's going to get franchise tagged by the Bengals. If he does get franchise tagged, is the dream dead of T. Higgins coming here? Or is there still an avenue for the Patriots to get him? Where do you think that stands?
It depends upon how militant he becomes in his stance and whether or not he tries to force a trade. I just think there's such a pecking order that exists in the AFC among teams who might have the cap space and certainly afford better opportunities. If you're a 26-year-old wide receiver, you might be less interested in the opportunity to win a championship, more interested in saying, this is my second contract. This is the one where I have to make $120 million, $150 million with $50 million or more guaranteed. So I think the Patriots would be in the pecking order there, but I've kind of always felt as if this was a 10% chance of T. Higgins winding up in New England anyway. So that's why I've continually kind of banged the drum for other options, because I just don't think that right now, despite all the things we've said, whether it's Frank May, whether it's Mike Vrabel, whether it's cap space, I just don't think it's an attractive landing spot yet.
Do we have any idea what type of player personnel guy Mike Vrabel is going to be? So if he's the one that has final say, I'm curious on sort of like the draft philosophy, because you look around the league, Tom, there are some GMs that'll trade first-round picks every year. They don't care. Like the Rams, they're going to be aggressive, and they'll trade them all for established guys. There are others that love the idea of trading down, like Bill did for many years, and getting as many picks as possible. And then there are others that won't budge on their picks. Do we have any idea what type Mike Vrabel will be?
I don't know if we have one entirely yet. I think that the best kind of a GM is one who can be malleable to the situation at hand. Like this year is not the fourth overall pick this year, as I think I said to you last week, is probably about the 10th or 11th overall pick last year. It's just not as good a pick. So you want to try and move down, and you want to try and find a buyer here that you would not, as the Patriots stated and did not do, move down last year, even though I was a proponent of that, because I think this team is so bad that it needed multiple positions filled. They're still kind of in that boat, but I don't know if they're going to be able to move down. But I don't specifically know how aggressive they are. All I can base it on is some of the guys that they took when Vrabel was there, the Jeffrey Simmonses, the A.J. Browns, how they built their team was extremely strong on the lines. So I'm looking at that and saying, well, this seems like a team that wants to be strong up front, build the team that way. And I think that that's having placed Drake May on the team, and you have that cog there, it's something that the Patriots are probably going to try and do.
You started to do your positional overviews, various degrees of need for the Patriots this offseason. You've done quarterbacks and running backs thus far. Running backs certainly a higher priority for the Patriots this offseason. I think you pegged it at a 4 out of 5. What'd you figure out through that exercise?
They don't have anybody. This is the second season that's an overstatement. This is the second season in a row in which Rhamondre Stevenson has been the second best running back on the team. Ezekiel Elliott was a better back in 2023 than Rhamondre Stevenson, and Antonio Gibson was a better back in 2024 than Rhamondre Stevenson. His 7 fumbles, 6 lost, was the highest among running backs in the NFL. Gibson was a good player, but he's averaged 150 carries over the course of his season, of his career. So right now you have Stevenson's working on a 4-year, $36 million contract. He's got $17 million guaranteed up front. So his cap hit is not bad at 5.54, but he's not playing to that level at all. So if the Patriots decided they wanted to move on from Rhamondre Stevenson, the best avenue for doing that would be via trade. They'd take a $12.5 million cap hit if they just cut him outright. If they're able to trade him after June 1st, they'd only take $1.6 million. And I'm sure you say, well, he's got no offensive line help. Why is he supposed to be able to generate yards behind the 32nd offensive line in the NFL? And if that's the case, then why are you spending $9 million on something you can barely use? That would be my contention. Send his ass to a team that could use it. Have him follow the Sony Michel route. Go to the Rams. They could use you.
What do you
That would be, to me, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what do you get in return for Rhamondre? What would be a fair return?
Honestly, because he's got a fairly sizable yearly contract, you're probably going to get a fourth, a fifth in exchange. But this is a great – the reason I also bring it up is it's a great running back draft. And I know the people are sitting there going, no, not a running back.
Well, not me, to be honest, Tom. I like the running back idea.
I think we've seen it work recently for teams.
And I think there's merit to, I'm not saying you're saying this, but I personally think there's merit to, in a bad draft, trade down and get Genty somewhere later or in the middle of the first round. But beyond Genty, who I think a lot of fans probably are at least loosely aware of, challenging Barry Sanders' records in college football at Boise State last year. What about the depth of the class? Like, where should they be targeting that? If you're the Patriots and you have a million needs on this team this offseason, where should they be looking?
You want a bell cow kind of back. There's a kid, Amari in Hampton from North Carolina, who fits that bill perfectly. He's about a 225-pound back, full-on forward lean at all times. He's a faster-looking, well, this is going to date me, Antoine Smith kind of back.
Wow.
At all times forward lean, and he runs hard, and he's probably a second or third round level player. But to me, that's bring back Gibson's already here. He's on a 3-year deal. Draft another back. You got nothing out of Kevin Harris. You got nothing out of Pete Strong. Those guys are gone. You didn't use your Michael Hasty. Rhamondre Stevenson can't hang on to the ball effectively. So stick with Antonio Gibson, who is a good pass catching back. He only had 23 catches this past year, which is down from what his general stuff was in Washington, his general production. And then go ahead and draft somebody and find a third down back. And I'm wondering how Josh McDaniels, that'll be fascinating, guys. Wanted to see how Josh McDaniels, does he try and repopulate this offensive roster with some of the staples of the Patriots from 10, 12, 5 years ago, 6 years ago? A slot, a third down back, and a tight end. They've got a tight end, but I would say continue to build a tight end. Running back and tight end are the two cheapest positions in the NFL, bar none. Those are positions you can draft guys who are good, who can make instant impacts the way Bowers did, the way Laporta, the way Hawkinson, the way all of those players did. And there's two excellent ones this year. Plus you can draft running back and start populating your offense that way. I know the Lions are desperately in need, but I think those are positions they should really focus on.
Well, fullback. You bring the fullback back?
Yeah.
I'll get one of these
Bring
guys.
him back. I saw Jakob Johnson. Johnson in the Super Bowl. I was all excited.
Ooh, I was thinking like more like a Sam Gash type is what I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, fine.
That's good. Well, it's funny because last year in the offseason, the Patriots and Elliott Wolf brought back so many guys. They just kept re-signing Patriots that were free agents. And you just mentioned how maybe there's a possibility of trading Rhamondre Stevenson. Could that possibly be a theme where Mike Vrabel comes in and is like, all right, we got a lot of these guys that you re-signed. I don't know if I like all these guys. Like, let's see what we can get. Like, could there be even more of a roster overhaul than, maybe in most years?
Oh, yeah, I definitely think it could be. I think that the Vrabel's mantra has been, my God, I have a lot of work to do in the past month or so. I just have an incredible amount of work to do. That's basically the vibe that I've gotten from Patriot Place. So that I think, they're not set anywhere except for a quarterback and cornerback and probably tight end and left guard, although right guard or tackle or wherever you're going to put Mike Onwenu. Mm-hmm. But to me, I think there could be overhauls in line. You got plenty of cap space, but I don't think that if a guy is not performing at a level commensurate with his valuation, move it. Move the guy down. Chop him. I mean, was Devon Godshaw, did he bring to you the level of performance that you expected? Do you have to make a hard decision with Christian Barmore with his health situation? He's a great player. He's unbelievably powerful. He is a staple of your defense if he's healthy and engaged. But do you have to make a hard decision there? I would be more hesitant there than I would be with a Stevenson or a Godshaw, just because, having a semblance of a heart and dealing with somebody's situation, I think would be probably a good idea.
But that's interesting because it's not just we're talking about adding to some of the pieces you have. You're trading a bunch of them away, or at least think the Patriots may explore trading a bunch of them away.
They're just not good enough. I mean, if you're going to throw that money out there, and who are you going to – that's the interesting thing, and that's why the Patriots, I think, re-signed so many players last year too, is who are we going to bring in otherwise? When you say, for instance, Hunter Henry and Mike Onwenu were re-signed, and people are like, what the hell? They were the best tight end and wide receiver, and offensive lineman on the market. Better than Tyron Smith, better than Jonah Williams. Hunter Henry, it was like, I think Dalton Schultz was the only other tight end available. So, of course, you're going to re-sign them. But then rewarding Barmore, rewarding Duggar, you're looking at those guys as lieutenants and people who are going to be able to carry your message forward. And there was nobody that they really targeted as being better, I guess, at those positions. So if you can improve them, do it.
This offseason is also going to be fun to keep an eye on what the Raiders are doing with Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. And so obviously Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly. So there's like a lot of local connections there. As of right now, I know it's just the middle of February, but who's your guess at who they're going to get to be their quarterback next year?
They have so many options. I mean, you got Rodgers, you got most likely Cousins. You could have Sam Darnold. I think that Sam Darnold would be, in some ways, the most attractive pick. But just watching him in their playoff game revert to full Sam Darnold,
yeah,
I wonder what the upside is. Yes, he can be a productive cog in a machine. He can be a souped-up Mac Jones if you put him in with Kevin O'Connell and Minnesota. But just the meltdown that I witnessed, which was like the Kyler Murray. Like, there are so many quarterbacks in the NFL who are making $55 to $60 million a year. When they are in the crucible of a playoff game, melt. I mean, the Kyler Murray performance a couple of years ago, I think it was it the Rams?
That sounds right.
He was just brutal. And I think Sam Darnold is guilty of that as well. So part of me would say, I'm about to say Kirk Cousins, but he was a pick machine this year. Anyway, you're picking over guys who are going to have flaws and probably are not your ticket to great success. But if I was the Raiders, I would probably look at a guy who can give me a certain level of play. It has a high floor, put it that way. Mm-hmm. So a Cousins, I don't know if Darnold is really a high floor guy.
What about Wilson? What about reuniting Wilson with Pete?
Yeah, I guess he's kind of high floorish.
I mean, he had a better year than Cousins. I'm not saying he's great, but
Pro Bowler.
Yeah, right. He had a better year than Cousins and Rodgers.
Yeah, he did. He was a Pro Bowler. You're right.
Sure
I mean, would you take Rodgers? Would you really scrutinize Rodgers' numbers?
No, right.
There's only one guy that Rodgers is going to look at and go, "Well, he's smarter than me." That would be, at least on football, that would probably be Brady. No.
I don't know with Rodgers.
Yeah, I don't even know if Brady would acknowledge, or if Rodgers would acknowledge that. Yeah,
he might disagree.
Yeah. So to me, I find that interesting, and I find, for the Patriots' purposes, circuiting through the Raiders, I wonder about the Josh McDaniels Davante Adams relationship, and whether or not when Davante Adams is released, there is an ability to convince him to come here for the money that they're not going to spend on T. Higgins. 2 years, $65 million. Come on in here. Guaranteed. Come on in, Davante. Would you do it, son?
Yeah, well, I would be very interested in that.
Yes, I would.
So, okay. Well, maybe they can talk their
fully guaranteed.
Maybe they can talk their way through those issues. Money solves a lot of problems. As we've seen, Keefe has made this point. DeAndre Hopkins and Bill O'Brien mended fences enough a few years ago where at least Hopkins came in for a visit. which we were skeptical of. So maybe that's an option on the table. Good stuff as always from Tommy Curran. You can check him out. NBC Sports Boston. His latest, the positional overviews for the Patriots this offseason, quarterbacks, running backs, with more still to come. He joins us every Tuesday here on Jones and Keefe. We call it a Tommy Tuesday. Tom, thanks so much for the time.
All right, guys. Take care. Have a great week.
Thank you.
All right. Tom Curran, by the way, good memory. It was Kyler Murray against the Rams.
Yeah.
19 of 34, 2 picks, 137 yards. Not great.
Not his best game.
Not his best game.
No.